So today's agenda is to understand what is virtualization, then what is hypervisor, what are the VMware product line. So every time it's a common misunderstanding by all the candidates that they simply say that they have to learn virtualization or they have to learn VMware, but they are actually not clear about what they exactly want to learn in virtualization or VMware. So it becomes very important to understand what are the product lines available from the VMware. So just to explain that in brief, I will write what are the options available. So we have VMware data center virtualization. We have desktop virtualization. Then we have got network virtualization. And we have cloud computing. And for every specific vertical, VMware is giving product. So vSphere is a product that you have to learn if you want to learn data center virtualization. For desktop virtualization, you have to learn a product called as Horizon View. For network virtualization, there is a product called as NSX. And for cloud computing, you have vCloud Director or vRealize Automation. So technically it makes more sense to begin at this level, data center virtualization, and that is what we are targeting today. So we are at this moment discussing the VMware Certified Associate Data Center Virtualization Fundamentals, right? So virtualization is a technique that helps us to convert the physical machine into the set of files that gives us a lot of benefit. The benefit in the terms of cost that we can save, the benefit in the terms of hypervisor, the infrastructure that can be saved, the benefit in the terms of the power consumption, the management, the space, all that things are saved. So we will see what virtualization is specifically, what is a hypervisor. So virtualization is a technique that we use to convert the physical machine into the virtual machines. So virtual machines are nothing but set of files. So traditionally till today, we are using the physical servers, and on the top of that, we are directly installing operating systems. But now, instead of directly installing operating system on the top of physical machine, what we are going to do is, we are going to add a layer which is an hypervisor and still get all the benefits of the physical server. So whatever you can get from a physical machine, that all things you can get from virtual machine. So here we can see what is a hypervisor layer. So this is your physical machine. On the top, you were traditionally adding operating system, but now we are adding a hypervisor layer. So when it comes to hypervisor, VMware is giving you a product called as ESXi. And on the top of this, we are able to create the virtual machines. So just to name few, the name of hypervisor given by VMware is ESXi. Similarly, you have Hyper-V available, that's given from Microsoft. You have KVM, that's given by Linux. You have Citrix Zen available from Citrix. So at this moment, we are specifically discussing about ESXi. So hypervisor is nothing but an operating system, a Unix-based operating system, which can be installed on a physical machine so that it can abstract the underlying hardware resources, the computing resources, So you have CPU, you have memory, you have network card, you have the storage that can be abstracted and shared for multiple virtual machines. So we get category like bare metal hypervisor, or we get a hosted hypervisor. So bare metal hypervisor is simply if we can install it on a physical machine without having any existing operating system or an application. That is a bare metal hypervisor. And the hosted hypervisor is example like you have workstation, which can be installed on a Windows machine or a Linux machine, and within which you can create virtual machines. And then you are going to install the operating system inside that virtual machine, which is called as guest operating system. So we have this examples available here. So we are targeting this ESXi server as of now, but then definitely when you go for cloud computing, you may leverage the different hypervisors to be integrated into your vSphere environment or the VMware environment. So at least for learning data center virtualization or understanding the concepts of data center virtualization, we have to understand the VMware ESXi, that's an hypervisor, and the product called as vSphere. So there are a couple of benefits of using this features. When you use ESXi, you get redundancy, you get ease of management, you get memory management option, you can run multiple virtual machines on the same physical machine, you get network redundancy. So one by one, then we will discuss all these things. So not wasting much time, I'm just going to demonstrate to you how are we going to install this ESXi. So I have a server available to which I will just try to get connected. And I am using at this moment vSphere client. So we have now got connected to ESXi machine, that's a server on which we have installed ESXi. I will quickly create one virtual machine here, which we can use for installing the ESXi. So while installing ESXi, you just have to take care of some hardware requirements. I'll say this is my ESXi01. So you need at least 4 GB of memory and 4 GB of storage space. So if I'm installing ESXi, I will have to select Linux and then select the specific version, 64-bit. Now these are the network settings by default. How many network card do I want to add? I can change it here. The amount of storage space that we want. So I'll just go with 25 GB. Now, a few changes that we will have to make. So I will consider changing the CPU. The amount of core, I will make it 2. And then memory, I will make it about 4 GB. And then I have to attach the media for installation. So I am selecting it from my data store. So I can simply open the console of this machine. I'll power it on. And that's the installation of the ESXi starts. Now this is only for the demonstration that we are doing this installation in a virtual machine. Otherwise, this we directly install on a physical machine. So you will be using a bootable pen drive or a SD card to install this ESXi in the physical server. We are not going to install it in a virtual machine or a workstation. So hardware requirement for installing ESXi. You require 4 GB of memory, four GB of disk space, two CPU core. Now this we will understand in more depth. What does this mean actually? Two CPU core. So these three things you need to take care of, that's it. And you can select the space either coming from the local disk, or maybe if you have a shared storage, you can use that. So it will take a couple of minutes for this to get installed. So just press enter so that you can continue the installation. And then accept the agreement, so press F11. Now here you get option to select the disk where you want to install that ESXi. So right now it is displaying you the local disk, the 25 GB that we created. If any remote storage would have been connected, then it would have displayed that lens coming from the storage. This is keyboard layout by default. It's US. If you want, you can change the language. Now we can set the password here. So password can be changed later on. We have option available. So this installation doesn't ask a lot of things. So now it is starting copying the files onto the space where we opted for installing it. So till the time this continues, I will just go through some quick slides so that we can understand the importance of data center virtualization. So this is typical physical infrastructure that we are using till today. You have your physical server on which you are installing operating system and then adding some applications. Now the good thing is that whatever the computing resources are available in the physical machine are all made available to the OS and the application. But the worst part is that if this physical hardware fails, then there is no way that you can get your application and OS running. So there will be a downtime, and if you don't want that, then you may have to invest in a new hardware and do the clustering. So at this moment, if I assume that there are 8 servers of an organization running different application, and if you want redundancy, then you will have to add more 8 servers. So the equation is like 8 application, you require 16 physical servers to manage with redundancy. Okay. So today the cost of keeping one server in a data center, the rack space, the cooling, the ISP connectivity, everything has increased. Now if the same company want to save on the cost, the management, the infrastructure, then they can go with virtualization. So it will now look like this. And now we can see the difference that on one physical server, instead of directly installing operating system, we are installing the ESXi hypervisor. And on the top of that, we are creating virtual machines inside which we are running the OS and application. So the benefit that we are getting here is you require less physical hardware, you are getting more virtual machines, and this every virtual machine is equivalent to a physical machine. Okay. So here you can see the difference between the physical and the virtual architecture. So whatever the computing resources are there in a physical machine are all being shared with the operating system and the application. But when it comes to virtualization, what is happening is whatever the computing resources are there, we are sharing it with all the virtual machines. And vSphere is controlling all the computing resources. So specifically this is ESXi that is controlling all the resources. Now every operating system has a kernel available. So that kernel is responsible for communicating with the hardware and taking control of that hardware. Now we can see the difference between the physical and the virtual machines. So physical machines are difficult to relocate. If you want to migrate somewhere, then it involves a lot of logistics. And if it is virtual machine, then it is only a set of files which you can easily copy and transfer it anywhere. Then management, definitely physical machines are difficult to manage. Virtual machines are only a set of files which need a good antivirus and a backup solution. Plus what you can use your hardware for has limitations. Say for example, my laptop doesn't allow me to install the Mac because that's a hardware dependency. Now in case of virtualization, what you can run in a VM, it doesn't matter. You can install maybe Windows, Mac or Solaris, whatever is required. So VMs are definitely not discriminating. They allow you to run any operating systems. So resource sharing is the key in the virtualization. So whatever the resources are available are being all shared with the virtual machines. So we are sharing CPU, we are sharing network, memory, and the storage. Everything is getting shared. So let us now understand step by step that how the sharing is made possible. So till the time quickly, we'll just see how the installation is progressing. Yeah, so we are just about to finish this. I'll just say enter. So almost all the files have been got copied, and this is final loading of the ESXi that's happening. Yeah, so finally this ESXi is installed, and we can see that there is an IP address associated. So it has picked up an IP from DHCP. Now, before we can use this for any production environment, it is important that we do some basic configuration. So I'll have to press F2 to get logged in into this, and if I want to shut down or restart, I will have to press F12. Now this console is called as direct console user interface. That's a DC UI. So I'll have to press F2 here if I want to get logged in. And root is the default username. And password, now I had set an password at the time of installation. So I'm now locally getting logged into this ESXi that we installed. So these particular configurations are called as DCUI settings. That's direct console user interface. Now the first option that we are getting is configure password, now which we had already done. But still, if you want to change, you can change. You can assign, provide the old password, new password, and the confirm password option. Second option is grayed out, that's lockdown mode. So we will discuss this when we use VCA client to get connected to this ESXi. And then you have option of configure management network. So this is very important. Now if I enter here, I'm getting these 6 options. I have network adapters. So network adapters will display the list of available LAN cards in the ESXi. So at this moment we can see that there is one LAN card available which is named as VMNIC0. We are able to see the MAC address and we are able to see the status as connected. Now if there would have been more number of LAN cards, then they would have been displayed as VMNIC0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. And from that list we can easily select which LAN card we want to use for management. Now at this moment there is default VMNIC0, so we are going to use it. And here I will be able to define the VLAN. So I will have to check with my network team and ask that which VLAN they are using for the management. So might be if they say that okay, they are using VLAN number 55, then I will enter that VLAN ID here. And then we can define the IP addresses for this ESXi. Now by default it has picked up DHCP automatically. If I want, I can assign a static IP. So do provide the gateway information also. Now this gateway can be either the ISP's IP address or the router's interface where this ESXi is going to get connected, or it can be even your domain controller IP address. Similarly, you can define IPv6 as well. So if you are using IPv6, then you can define static IPv6. If you are not, then we would recommend that you simply disable it. And then the most important, we define the DNS configuration as well. So DNS it will pick up automatically, and if I want to assign a static, I will assign a static. Now this is majorly responsible for the name resolution. So I will check again with my system administrator and ask him what are the DNS addresses. And here I can assign the host name. Now this is a name that you want to give to your ESXi server. So maybe I want to say this is my ESXi01. I'm going to use it for production, and I'm going to place it in my Mumbai data center. Now this can help me to quickly identify where this ESXi is, for what network it is getting utilized. Then you have option to add the DNS suffix. Now if my organization is abc.org, then I'm going to enter it here. So this will make the fully qualified domain name for my ESXi. So it would be esxi01.abc.org. Now if I want to apply the changes, I can apply the changes. Then we have option to restart the management network. We can test the management network. So from here it will send ping to all the addresses that we have defined so that we can check the connectivity. And this is very important. Just make sure that everything is connected. Now a lot of time we see that the resolving host name fails because the DNS records are not updated. So before you assign any name to your ESXi, just make sure that you update the system administrator and ask him to update the DNS records. Then we have network restore options. So in an event, if we are not happy with the changes that we have made, then there is an option available that we can go to the default settings which are there. And you can go with configure keyboard layout. So here you can select the language. Default is US. We have then troubleshooting options available. So in troubleshooting, you can enable ESXi shell. So this is required for scripting. You can enable SSH. This is required for command line access or remote connectivity to your ESXi. And you can define the timeouts for the sessions. So maybe I will say that, okay, anyone can be connected for 30 minutes only. But during that, if he is idle for 2 minutes, then his session will be disconnected. Yeah, it will be timed out. And then we can restart management agent so that we can start the services. Then here we have got the option to view the system logs. We can check the support information, and we can put everything to factory default. So once we are done with this UI settings, then we can use a vSphere client to get connected to this ESXi. Now vSphere client is a Windows-based application that we can install on any Windows machine and get connected. So how do we get that vSphere client? We will see that. So the IP of the ESXi is 0.109. So I can simply go to a browser and here I will type the IP address. So you don't have to go to internet or download the vSphere client separately. You will get a link available from ESXi itself, but internet has to be connected so that you can download the vSphere client. So this is the page that is coming from the ESXi. Now here if I want, I can download vSphere client or I can download vCenter server also. So right now I will say download the vSphere client. So download has started, it's almost about 348 MB. I'll cancel it because already the vSphere client is installed. It takes hardly 3 clicks or 4 clicks. It's a Windows-based application. It doesn't ask you much more things. And now as we connected to this 102, we can now get connected to this 109. So we look at the similar interface. So this is going to be the default view for the first time. So we have got connected, then we go to inventory and we see this ESXi here. So vSphere client helps you to get connected so that you can create virtual machines and manage your ESXi server. Now before creating the virtual machines on this ESXi, let us try to understand how are we going to calculate the resources that we are going to share. So resource sharing is the key of virtualization. So whatever is available in the physical server, it might be CPU, memory, network, or the storage, is all things we are now going to share. So CPU will be shared for a lot of virtual machines. Now I'll take a typical example of a server where we can understand the CPU sharing. So I have got HP DL 360. It has got 4 sockets. It means 4 CPU. And every CPU is quad core. It has got a processing speed of 3.0 gigahertz. Now, if I am being asked a question that how many virtual machines will I be able to create on this physical server? Now, for that, the most important thing I need to calculate is how many CPUs will I get from this. So, CPU that we use in virtual environment are called as logical CPU, or you can say virtual CPU. So first it is important that we calculate number of core. So total number of core is nothing but number of CPU socket into number of core. So in this HP DL 360 example that we are talking about, The number of CPU socket is 4, and every CPU is quad core, so quad stands for 4, so multiplied by 4. Now this gives us total of 16 logical CPU, or you can say vCPU. So I can now create 16 virtual machines and assign one CPU to each, or I can assign 4 CPUs to each. I can create 4 virtual machines. I can go with any combination. So this calculation is very important. See how many sockets are there, and see the quad core or dual core or what it is. How many core are there per processor? Okay. So just to summarize this, number of sockets multiplied by number of core per socket equals to number of logical CPU. Now the good thing is that if this server allows me to enable hyperthreading from BIOS, then in that case number of logical CPU will become 16 plus 16, so that will become 32. So if you have this server with 4 sockets and each is quad core, you will be able to create 32 machines. Now we can take simply one more example. Say we have got Dell PowerEdge, it's 2950. Now this has got 8 CPU, hexa-core. So total number of core will be 8 socket into hexa is 6. That becomes 48. And plus, if I can enable hyperthreading, now this is going to give me 48 plus 48. That will become 96. So 96 logical CPU I can get from my physical machine. So I hope this clears the CPU calculation. So if you see this slide here, you can see that there is one socket and it has got 4 core. Now it depends upon assigning the CPUs to your virtual machine. Now might be the hyperthreading is enabled. So 4 plus 4 becomes 8, and out of that one of a VM is given 1 CPU, the other has been given 2 CPU, the third one is given 4 CPU. You can distribute as you want. So similar to CPU, then we can share the physical amount of memory available. So whatever the amount of this physical memory is, we will share it with the virtual machines. So if I have got this 8 GB, I can still give 1 GB, 2 GB and 8 GB. So that goes beyond 8 GB, that becomes total 11 GB. But that's fine in virtualization, you can do the overcommitment. Not all your virtual machines are going to utilize the memory every time. So that's the reason why you can overcommit. So when we assign resources to a virtual machine, we need to understand what is limit and reservation. So for example, I create virtual machine A with 8 GB of memory. It means I'm defining a limit of 8 GB for my virtual machine. And I can check with the application administrator, that whatever the application he is going to run in this virtual machine, what is the minimum guaranteed memory that it requires. So he may say that, okay, out of 8 GB, the machine will require at least 4 GB always available for the performance. So that amount I am going to set as a reservation. So limit, please keep in mind that this is only logical commitment. Your virtual machine will be happy to see that it has got 8 GB, but 8 GB will not be given to that virtual machine from the ESXi. But when you say reservation, then it is as good as physical commitment. So that virtual machine will every time get 4 GB as a guarantee. So when we create virtual machine, we can define limits, we can define reservation. And then it comes to networking. Now if I am running 10 virtual machines on one ESXi, and if I have to connect that all virtual machines together, then we require a virtual switch. It is similar to what you require in the physical network. If you want to connect a lot of physical machines, you require a physical switch. Similarly here we require a virtual switch. So this one virtual switch gets created by default, which allows you to connect 120 number of devices. But if you want more, you can increase the number of ports to 4088. Now in your physical architecture, all the connectivity will be happening from your LAN card. It will get connected to the physical switch. Whereas in VMware, all the virtual machines who have their LAN cards available will get connected to the virtual switch, and then the connectivity will go to this VM link. We also require space so that we can keep the virtual machine files. So we will be installing the guest operating system. Now for installing guest operating system, we require a disk inside a virtual machine, which is called as VMDK. That's a virtual machine disk. And entire virtual machine files will be placed in a space coming from a storage or a local disk. So that becomes data store. And then we will be able to see that once we create virtual machine, we get a folder by that same name in the data store. So we are good to go and create one virtual machine so that we can see this virtual machine folder and see the files that create or construct your virtual machine. So I can right click ESXi and say new virtual machine. So this is now we are creating a virtual machine. And now we have got the option typical and custom. We'll go with typical. I'm going to install, might be Windows 7. Now this is the data store, that's local disk of my ESXi, where I'm going to keep my virtual machine files. So I'll select this specific operating system that I'm going to install. It's Windows 7 32-bit. So how many network card do I want in my virtual machine? I can select it from here. Now this will be the virtual machine disk inside which I will be installing the operating system. So I'm keeping it 24 GB, I'm keeping it thin provision. So if I say thin, it means that I'm not going to lose this 12 GB immediately today itself. But if I say thick, then I'm going to lose that 12 GB immediately. Now, virtual machine may require 3 months or 4 months to utilize that space, but I will lose that immediately. Okay. Now, in thick, you have got two options. One is lazy zero, one is eager zero. So, zeroing is a process that has to be done by an application before writing the data onto the disk. So, lazy zero means whenever some files will be available, the part of the storage will be processed, it will be zeroed out, and then you will write the data onto it. So every time you got a file, you zero out. Every time you got a file, you zero out and you write. So that is going to add a write penalty. So if I have an application that is very much write intensive, then I will prepare the disk thoroughly, proactively. It's all zeroed out. And now the application will be happy to write the instructions every time. So it doesn't have to now do the zeroing. It will save the write penalty. So mostly for database servers, we recommend that use thick provision, eager zero. If you want to save on space, then you can go with thin provision. So I want to attach a media for installation. So I'll keep some file uploaded here. Now once the process gets completed, you will be able to see a virtual machine getting created as Windows 7. And if you go to the data store, storage, you have data store here, and you see the files inside it. Can you see this folder Win7? So a folder gets created. I can go to edit settings. And I will select media for installing the operating system. I'll power on the virtual machine now. And now this is going to install the Windows 7. Now to quickly recap the things, we installed ESXi, configured DCUI settings. This is called as direct console user interface. Installing VCA client. We understood computing resource sharing options, CPU, memory, network, and storage, that's data store. We saw the option of creating a virtual machine. And finally, we are at the stage where we are installing guest operating system within a virtual machine. So by the time this gets completed, we'll just break for 5 minutes and come back, around 10 minutes, and then come back. And so we are back, and we can see that the installation is still progressing. It's almost done, and we should be able to install the VMware tools, which is very important. Before going ahead, I would like to take some questions from the audiences. So you all can either raise your hands or you can put some queries into the chat option so that I can quickly reply to those. Now, as we install the motherboard drivers after installing the operating system in the physical machine, same thing we have to do here also. So we have installed an operating system in a virtual machine, and we now need to provide some drivers. So you get drivers from VMware tools. Yes. So VMware tools is a set of device drivers that will enhance the performance of your virtual machine. So it will give you the display drivers, the LAN card, the time synchronization ability, the ability to shut down. So to get that VMware tools, I'll go to VM, I'll go to guest, and say install upgrade VMware tools. So this is majorly responsible for enhancing the performance of the virtual machine. So it is going to add all the necessary required drivers for the devices. So I can run this setup now for VMware tools. Now you don't have to download it separately from anywhere. You will get this from your ESX itself. Okay? It's bundled. So we are at this moment installing the VMware tools. Yes, it will install network driver, it will install sound drivers also. So you get option of typical, complete or custom. It's better to go with typical. It will give you most required set of drivers available. So you have to restart your virtual machine once the VMware tools are installed. No. So virtual machine will fail to perform without this VMware tools. And once the tools are installed, then reboot is mandatory. You have to reboot. Now, usually it's a problem always that if I am working inside the console of a virtual machine, the mouse gets locked. So if I want to release the mouse, I will have to press Control Alt so that I can come out. And if you press Control Alt Del to log into your virtual machine, it will actually send message to your main machine. So you have to use a separate option. So you can go to VM, guest, and say this send Control Alt Del. Or from your physical keyboard, you can give central send control insert. Yeah, so machine is all good to be used. You can see the network adapters. So you can verify the device manager. So here you can see the network adapters are added. Display. So this was one way that you can create virtual machine. So it's like you just right click, say new virtual machine, and then you follow the wizard. So you get option of typical or you get option of custom. Okay. Now let us create one virtual machine with this custom option. Or else we can do is we can use an appliance to create a virtual machine. Okay. So just to note down a few things. So we were at this slide when we were discussing the resource sharing. So we saw this virtual disk, how we created and we installed the operating system inside this. And then we also verified this entire virtual machine is nothing but a folder on the data store. Okay. So your virtual machine is nothing but set of files inside this folder. And inside that data store, then you have the file system. So in Windows, typically you use C drive, D drive, or the E drive. Same thing in the Linux, you have a lot of partitions available. And in VMFS, you have root on the top. And if you're creating local disk, then you get virtual machine folders in the local data store. Or you have a shared data store, then you get virtual machine folders in the shared data store. So these are simply referred to as volumes. So there is no complex file system. So using vSphere, we are able to create an environment where we can run the virtual machines. And then further you learn vCloud Director so that you can build your private cloud or the public cloud. And you can access your machines through the internet. So at this moment we are understanding and learning this backend infrastructure. So which is possible because of the vSphere, and later on we can go with this vCloud Director. That's a cloud environment. So I will also like you to go and check the options available on the VMware website so that you can understand the certification path as well. So after saying vmware.com/education, then you can go to this certification tab. Now the current version is version 6, so better we refer to this version 6 roadmap. But for any reason, if you want to gather the previous version information, then you have this version 5 roadmap as well available. And here you are able to see clearly that there are 4 tracks available. One is data center virtualization that we are discussing right now. You have got cloud management and automation, that's cloud computing. This is network virtualization, and this is desktop virtualization. And in every vertical, you have tracks available. So you have first option as VMware Certified Associate. So in every vertical, you have VMware Certified Associate. This is data center virtualization. This is cloud management. This is network virtualization, and this is desktop virtualization. Now commercially, this doesn't have a value from job perspective. So today it's required that you at least have to target and come to this level, that's VMware Certified Professional. So what we are discussing right now is this VCA, that is fundamental understanding of the product known as vSphere, and at least understanding that what specifically the data center virtualization is. But I would always say that please target this particular level, VCP 6 DCV, that's professional level. Now till 5.5 it was okay that you could have given one exam, but from 6.0 you have to give both the exams. So associate level also is mandatory for getting the VCP 5 certification, the VCP 6 certification. And maybe after this you can plan for your cloud, or you can go for network virtualization. So right now we are focusing this. So I also want to show you the option where you can get registered and see the online 3 hours of video that is made available by the VMware. So for the first level, you can see here that there is no course requirement. Associate level, you can do it from home also. Even exam, you can take it from home. You don't have to go to any testing center to give that exam. And then you can pass this fundamental exam. So it will cost you about $125, the fundamental exam. If you click in this data center virtualization training option, then you can see there is a 3 hours of self-paced video that you can access. And you can simply say here, register now. So if you have already created an account, you can log in, or you have option to create the new user account below that. So here you get the details of the fundamental training. It's a self-paced 3 hours available. And here you can say start the course. Once you are finished with that, then you can take your exam. And then you can target this professional level, that's VCP 6 DCV. Now to achieve this certification, you can see the options available. So there are two paths to get VMware certified professional. Path one you have is either you get some experience or you attend one of the required training courses. So these are the list of training programs that you can attend and get the authorization for the certificate and taking the exam. So we will be focusing on this installation, configuration and management. And then complete the foundation exam and complete the professional exam. So both the exams are mandatory. Now there is another path available. You can complete foundation and professional exam in case if you are already a 5.5 certified. But in case if you are not existing 5.5 certified, then you can still go with the first option. So coming back to where we started. So this is a machine that we created, and we would like to see the files that construct this virtual machine. So I'll select my ESXi, I'll go to configuration, storage. I'll see the folder So that's the folder Windows 7, and I can see all these files. So these are all the files that construct your virtual machine. So if someone asks us that what is virtual machine, then we can simply say it is a set of files. Okay. And these all files are encapsulated into a folder, and it is placed on a data store. So the first file that we are able to see is win7.nvram. Now this is nothing but BIOS of your VM. As a physical machine has a BIOS where you can log in, you can select the first bootable device, you can make the hardware changes. Then you have another virtual machine as win7.vmdk. So this is virtual disk that you created for your virtual machine, and you install the operating system inside this. Then you have win7.vmx. So this is the most important configuration file. So this file will hold all the record of the virtual machine. And in fact, if you incidentally remove your virtual machine from the inventory, you will need help of this file so that you can register your virtual machine back into the vSphere inventory. You also have a file called as vmware.log. So these are all logs for VM. So what are the changes we are making? They are getting registered in this. Then you have a file called as vmx.win7. vswap. So this is VM kernel created memory for VM when it is powered on. So it's like a paging concept. When you power on a virtual machine, only then this file gets created. So it's an additional provisioning of memory. You also have a file called as win7.vmxf. So that is an extended configuration. So after creating your virtual machine, if you make any hardware changes, then this all gets registered in this vmxf. You have vmx delta configuration file. So these are temporary changes that happens to a VM when it is powered on. You have .lck, that's a log file. So ESXi01 is now owning this virtual machine, so there is a lock pin placed on that. Okay. You have win7.vswap. So this is actually the virtual machine memory. So at the time of creating virtual machine, whatever the amount of memory you assign is this vswap. You have win7.vmsd. So this is virtual machine snapshot data. So if I take a snapshot of the machine, it will get recorded in this. So it's like restore point that you create in Windows. Now there are a couple of other files that we are not able to see in the folder here. So that's VMTX, and that stands for virtual machine template. So if you convert your virtual machine into an image, that is referred to as a template. So you may create a template so that you want to create multiple copies of your virtual machine. So in VMware you have two options, either you say clone or either you say template. You have VMSS, that's virtual machine suspend state. So you can put your virtual machine into a sleep mode or hibernate mode, you can say, that's a suspend state. So all the active memory contents will be copied onto the hard disk and your hardware can go to sleep, and then when you resume you will get all your applications as it is. That's the benefit of suspend state. You get VMSN as a file, that's memory contents of a virtual machine which are captured during snapshot. You also have a file called as -delta.vmdk. It stores user data. You get -rdm.vmdk. This is raw device mapping. So these are a couple of files that construct a virtual machine. And now we can see the another option to create the virtual machine, that is using an appliance. So appliance is a pre-configured virtual machine with operating system and the application installed. So today we do not use any physical CDs and DVDs for doing the installation because we are using ISO. So we can say that ISO has replaced all the physical CDs and DVDs. But now you may not require ISO also, because you are getting a pre-configured virtual machine in the form of image which you can deploy and start using it. Say for example, if you want to get Linux and Oracle installed in a virtual machine, so what all things you require? You require installable file for Linux and Oracle. You require information on how to install Linux and Oracle. Then you need to know how to integrate Oracle and Linux together, and then you will be able to use it. So that will take almost 4 hours. Now if you want to save on time, you just go to a VMware website that is called as VA Marketplace. So I can click on the file here. I can say deploy OVF template. So I can show you that marketplace where you get that images. This is a VA marketplace, virtual appliance marketplace. If the internet is connected, it will get connected to the website where you get that images. So here you get a lot of options available for the appliances. Say for example, I want a firewall. So I can quickly search for the firewall here. So these are all appliances available. Now some are free, some are paid. You may select the one you want. Then they may ask you to do some registration and get that appliance. So you can say try. You can get yourself registered here. They give you the login details, the technical specifications of the machine. Now once you get this, then you can come to this file and say deploy OVF template. So deploying OVF template is a process of creating a virtual machine from an OVF file. So I have a vCenter server appliance file available, which I can use for creating the virtual machine now. So either you provide a URL from where you want to download, or you provide the path of that file, say next. Now this is a summary of the virtual machine that will get created. I can name this, I will say that this is vCenter server. Now disk size I will say thin provision. The default network I want to get connected. And I can say power on after deployment. So you can see immediately a virtual machine got created, and within few minutes, once this is completed, we will have that virtual machine up and running available. So you save a lot of time. Good thing is that whatever the appliances are distributed today in the market, they are all built with the help of SUSE Linux or some Linux flavor. Now that OS is free, it's open source operating system. So people can save a lot of cost on purchasing the licenses for that operating system. So VMware is giving you this vCenter server as an appliance, so that you don't have to buy a Windows license to install the vCenter server. Now at this moment we have only used web client to get connected to ESXi01 and do some task of creating a virtual machine. But when you have more than one ESXi in your environment, then you won't be able to use vSphere client. You require some centralized management application, and that will be the vCenter server. So as you require a domain controller to manage your domain, similarly you require a vCenter server to manage multiple ESXi machines. So once this appliance gets deployed, then we will do the installation of vCenter server so that we can then add the ESXi. I will also quickly create one more ESXi and just power off this virtual machine now. Right. So right now we are creating a virtual machine for ESXi02. So at least assign 4 GB of memory to the ESXi. And here we can now attach the media for installing the ESXi. So I'll just power this on. Now this is for the demonstration. So once we get our vCenter server up and running, we will be able to add this both ESXi, that's ESXi01 and 02 in the vCenter server, so that you can see the benefit of centralized application management also. So for protecting your virtual machines, there are options available. You can use products that can be used for backups. So virtual machine backup is an application available that can be used. So what is vCenter server? This is the most important part of the data center virtualization. So this is centralized management application for all ESXi VMs, storage and network. So it is very important that we need to have a vCenter server. Now there are two options for this vCenter server. Either we can go with Windows based vCenter server, or we can go with based vCenter server. Now here we are going to give you exe, the installable files for installing vCenter server on Windows, but for Linux we are not giving you installable file, we are giving you appliance. That's nothing but pre-configured virtual machine with base OS and application installed. So for your home lab, you can download this from VMware website. It will be available for 60 days evaluation version, and during that it works as a full functional edition. Yes, you get everything in that. So with vCenter Server or ESXi, you have edition available, Standard, Enterprise, Enterprise Plus. So during your evaluation, it gives you all the Enterprise Plus features as well. This machine appliance got deployed, the vCenter server, and in the summary we can check if it has got some IP address. So that's 0.111. So even this is about to finish. So we can get connected to this appliance using a configuration URL. So HTTPS, IP address of your appliance, and the port number 5480. You can continue to getting connected this. So this is now actually I'm accessing the application which is there in the vCenter server appliance. So just remember that you have to use this configuration URL to get connected to that appliance. Now here I can enter the default user as root. Password is small VMware. So when you download this from the VMware website, they have mentioned the username and the password. And I can say now login. So this is actually now I am getting logged into the application which is there in the appliance. Now appliance has a base operating system SUSE Linux. I am not bothered about that. We are getting connected to application. And you log in and you get this page where it allows you to accept the license agreement because you are about to install the vCenter server now. Say next. So it will accept the agreement. I can say configure with default settings. Next. And I will say start. So it takes hardly 4 clicks for anyone to install this vCenter server application. And vCenter server can allow you to manage 1,000 hosts and 10,000 virtual machines. So it doesn't matter how many ESXi hosts you have, you can manage them all together. So we'll just allow this installation to get continued and completed. So this should take another at least 5 to 10 minutes for getting installed. And then good thing is that we will be able to use web client to get connected to the vCenter server. So all services got installed, the database, the single sign-on. I can say now finally close, and I will have to wait to confirm the services are up and running. I can see the web client is running, the vCenter server is running, the inventory service also available. And now I can use web client to get connected to the vCenter server. So we can use the URL https. Instead of 5480, I will use 9443. Now this is web client to get connected to vCenter server. Now we will have to download this client integration plugin so that we can take the virtual machine console access. So root and the small VMware, default username and the password. So this is more similar to vSphere client, but it has more options available. It's a smart navigation. So at this moment, there is only one vCenter server available in the inventory. So this is all the inventory list. Here you have the navigation option. Here you have recent task, work in progress, and alarms. Now this is the vCenter server that we have available. So what I will have to do is I will have to right click and create a data center. So that's the top level of object. And within this data center now I can go on adding my ESXi host. So we'll confirm if that ESXi installation is completed. Now here I can right click and say add host. And just let me confirm if that's the correct one. And that's 109. Define the username root, password, you can also assign the license key for your ESXi that you are going to add. Now here you get that option, enable lockdown mode. Okay. So if you remember, in the direct console user interface, it was disabled. In the direct console user interface, it was disabled. It was grayed out. Okay. Now, if I enable this lockdown mode, then I will not be able to connect to the ESXi using command line option or the vSphere client. So I will have to every time use only the vSender server to get connected to the ESXi. I will not do that right now. Yes, and the direct access through vCenter server, vSphere client and the ESXi will be blocked. Yes. So we are adding this host now into the vCenter server. So whatever the amount of ESXi you have in your environment, you can go on adding. I should be see it like this. And then again I can go on adding more. I can then again create virtual machines and do all the tasks whichever I was able to do from the vSphere client. I can say lockout. So we have got configuration URL, HTTPS vCenter server underscore name or IP address with port number 5480 and web client URL HTTPS VCVA underscore name or IP address 9443 and saying vSphere dash client. Then it is important that you create data center under vCenter server, add host under data center. So if we come back and see the agenda that was designed, so we were discussing the features, the ESXi and the vSphere, and then we saw the installation of ESXi, the vCenter server. So VMware provides you infrastructure services. For example, the ESXi as a hypervisor, it gives you application services. You have vMotion storage, vMotion HA or disaster recovery solutions like SRM. You also get vCenter server available as a platform, and it gives you a centralized management for all your ESXi and the virtual machines. So this is how the vCenter server is. You can manage everything with a centralized application. So we installed vCenter server, and then we were able to add the ESXi. So overall, your entire data center can be managed using the vCenter server. So vSphere is not a specific software that you can go and buy. It's a bundle of a lot of things. So ESXi is a component of vSphere. vCenter server is a component of vSphere. vSphere client is a component of vSphere. Web client is a component of vSphere. Your appliance is a component of vSphere. Okay. So I would like to take some queries from the audiences before we end the session. So I would request Shiv to check with the audiences and forward me the queries. We are also going to upload the documents that you all will be able to refer. Okay. Just to revise all these things. And do make out some time to go and register for that VCA. I showed you how you can get registered. Okay. That's an online video available from VMware that you can refer. So we covered almost all the topics that are the part of the vCenter Server Certified Associate Data Center Virtualization Training.